So again, it's primed, okay? It's primed to be a tool in this escalation. And of course, behind this whole scenario is Iran and China and eventually world war, okay?
Yes.
So this is not just some isolated little country that is, going to finish, this little escalation and then shut it all down and then everything's quiet again. That's not actually what they have in mind, as far as I can tell. Now you can ask me questions. I just wanted to.
Oh, no, you laid out a bunch of great stuff.
I'm just concerned that people, I don't hear anybody looking at this situation as how it has now escalated to a whole nother level than it was, let's say, a week ago.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of folks out there probably want to believe that it's the near-death experience that we've been kind of promised through this whole meat grinder that we're going through. But to look at it, I think in a very sober way, like you are. I mean, let me ask you this: if it does end up going that route, and we do end up spiraling into war, I mean, my number one concern is that could happen, and really that it probably would not be just simply a conventional war. That if it's a real thing, real war, that Putin is threatened with nukes on his doorsteps, that he would probably use nukes. If it really went in that direction, it would seem to me that the White Hats really weren't in control, and weren't kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. It seems to me like you kind of see it as almost a hybrid sort of a situation where they're coordinating, but they're not necessarily engineering the situation, but more trying to steer it in a certain way. Is that an accurate way to say it? Or no?
I think that we have we're coming at this from two different angles. My angle is that you've got an enemy that's worldwide, that is satanic, that goes back in history, and that is basically what is our enemy on earth. And it's not, like I said in a recent interview, it's not just the Khazarians, or what ostensibly is like centered in old Khazarian part of Ukraine, or the Nazis in Germany. These are not isolated, okay? The Vatican is involved, the reptilians underneath the Vatican that orchestrate what goes on. The New World Order is a very well-oiled, ancient machine that now has AI, et cetera, some very, very sophisticated weaponry that escalates the game. Yes, the good guys probably have the same thing. So in a certain sense, they're at a draw. But there's no doubt whatsoever that in my view, that the White Hats are fighting against a age-old enemy. Therefore, they're not setting up the game. The game existed when they emerged, which is around the time of, at least that we're most aware of, in the coup with the death of JFK. Okay, and why he has a Q around his grave, and it goes on from there. So I don't see them in the driver's seat, but I do see that they have opportunity horizons with certain actions that the deep state takes to actually switch it around into a certain kind of a narrative. And part of their hobbled, in a sense, they're hobbled. If it's kind of like a horse that's hobbled. And that's the mainstream media, okay? And that the fact that for many years, that mind control and the media have run the engine, if you think of this as an engine going forward, or a river, or whatever, its direction has been dictated by these Satanists. And this is not new. The enemy doesn't change. The enemy is actually the same every time. So the White Hats have to kind of have devised their plan with that in mind. They knew what they were up against. They know, they made a plan. That plan you know, they strategize with generals, et cetera, et cetera. But in anything that goes on in life and humanity and so on, there are elements of surprise. There are switch ups that can happen, right? Because on the one hand, they're making a plan, but on the other hand, the dark side is making a plan, right? And every time they do something, the dark side does something. You know, it's kind of a constant, if you want to call it a tennis match or whatever you want to call it, chess game, as it's usually referred to. That's very accurate.